Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast Ryan Murphy doesn't want you to hear. It's Monkeys and Playbills, y'all.
Do you want to take that again and you call our listeners Playbills, Paul?
They're not ladies and gentlemen. We have
Thank
many
you. That's right. I
non-binary
appreciate that a lot.
friends.
I hope the whole thing can stay in, actually, because I do love this conversation.
Yes.
Dear distinguished Playbills, welcome to the podcast Ryan Murphy doesn't want you to hear. It's Monkeys and Playbills, y'all.
You're probably very confused to see the name Funny Girl appear in your podcast list.
But Jill, Daff, and Paul, isn't that a really popular musical that's been running for several decades? Technically.
I don't think it ran for several decades, but it's never flopped.
Yeah,
it's never had an under
exactly.
100 run.
So then what the heck are we doing here?
What the heck happened to this podcast, Paul?
Well, typically, for those of you joining us for the first time, for those of you who found your way here, and this is the first episode of Monkeys and Playbills you're listening to, usually we're a podcast that talks about Broadway musicals that had runs of 100 performances or fewer on Broadway.
And what the heck happened?
But today we're not doing that. There is no reason for this episode.
None at all.
We have no justification other than we are currently in a critical situation in the wider Broadway and musical theater lover community.
Yeah.
And it is very important that we just take a second to slow down and actually talk about this.
It seems as though this drama has been unfolding for decades. Like, literally decades. So when Daff was saying the show has been running, technically you were not wrong. And the reason I say this is because for me, this story has been on my mind since 2010, the Tony Awards. And we'll get into why later.
I think it's been in people's minds even before that. I think things come into play maybe a couple years before even.
Ooh.
And also, to answer the question of why are we here, we're here because the Canada Council for the Arts gave us money to be here. So once again, we'd like to say thank you to our generous donors, the Canada Council for the Arts.
And our producing partners, the Crescent Arts Centre.
Canada Council for the Arts. We make art.
Wait, is that their,
And
is that their logo?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
If you need a
I
commercial
love that.
Canada Council for the Arts, I am available.
That is great.
We're all laughing because this is an episode about the recasting drama that surrounds the most recent revival of Funny Girl that is currently running on Broadway, starring Lea Michele. Now, this is not necessarily an episode on Funny Girl as a piece, but maybe we should go a little bit on what Funny Girl is.
So in my mind, as a person who has very little knowledge of this industry,
Yep.
my impression of Funny Girl is that it is a star vehicle.
That's my understanding as well.
Okay, so 1964 original production.
Yeah. Music by Jewel Stein. Beautiful music. Incredible music.
Yes, book by Bob Merrill.
Starring a young upstart named Bette Midler?
Bab Streisand.
Bab Streisand. Starring, you may not have heard of her, Barbara Streisand.
You will know from the techno song
Barbara
of the same
Streisand.
name.
Barbara Streisand is obviously one of the most famous musical theater performers of all time.
Performers, producers, she's done it all.
And done it well. Director. She's a great director.
Yes.
She directs movies. And they're really good.
I love her.
Yeah.
I want to be her when I grow up, especially to clone my dogs.
And she does them all well. One of the...
Sorry, she actually did clone her dogs. That's
Honestly, if I had Barbara Streisand money, I'd probably do the same thing.
right? Okay.
And doesn't she also have a mall in her basement? Isn't that she keeps she has some department stores in her basement?
Oh,
so
you're
she can,
kidding me.
because she loves to shop. So she can go shopping at the department stores, but she's also one of the most famous people on the planet.
So it's like when you're a kid and you have a play store in your basement, but
Exactly.
hers are maybe real and actually
literally
stocked
she's got
with merch.
I don't know which stores, but a Macy's or something
Yeah.
down there.
All right, so Barbara Streisand, if you're looking for a couple of sugar babies, we are available. Please
That's
email
us.
us at monkeysandplaybills@gmail.com. Thank you.
So Funny Girl is based on the life of a real life performer from the 1920s and 30s named Fanny Brice.
That's right.
Who was a star of radio and vaudeville, an early entertainment star.
Exactly. And was a funny girl.
Oh,
Yeah, I know you were all waiting for that.
I've been trying to figure it out for weeks now since we decided we were going to do this episode.
They workshop like other titles like Amusing Lass.
Oh, that would be fun. That's
Humorous Lady. They just didn't have the same like panache.
Yeah.
And so the musical is about a chunk of her life. It's kind of a dramatization of a chunk of her life about her relationship with her second husband. It's not her second husband in the musical, but I believe in real life he was her second husband.
Yeah.
And her rise as a performer and also their relationship. So it's kind of a love story and a biopic.
Yeah.
And it's like, fine.
Well, okay, yes. Yes. If we take Babs out of it,
Yes.
it's a fine show.
Yeah. But put Babs in it and it's just a monstrous hit.
Yeah.
It destroys left and right. They make it into a movie, which is a really nice.
I
and is a
actually
huge
like
hit.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
The,
like
the movie's nicer than the musical, is what I understand.
As a person who's only seen the musical once, like I think I was probably 11 or 12, so I don't have much recall on it. I feel like I was a little bit bored by it. But again, I was like 11, right? So what am I mesmerized by? Disney?
Right?
So
Yeah.
I don't know if I can really remember how the musical made me feel, but I can definitely tell you that watching the movie was like refreshing. It just solidified for me why Barbara was like A, exactly the right choice for that role, and B, why she has been able to sustain such a long career.
Absolutely. There is not 1 ounce of hype about Barbara Streisand that is oversold. She is everything and more. I'm not a funny girl person either. It's not something other than knowing some of the songs, but I
Yeah.
took a listen to the entire original Broadway cast album for this podcast.
Yeah.
She sounds absurd. There is nothing like it. The way she navigates that upper register
Oh my
is
gosh.
like, it's clear as a bell. It's got personality. It's got interesting choices. It's not perfect, but every imperfection makes it even more interesting.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, not only was she one of the first to start navigating that territory in that way, kind of like riding the coattails of like Ethel Merman's sort of really trumpety sound, but she took it in a new direction with inflection, like you're talking about. And then a lot of people have actually not messed with the way she's done it and have just taken after her
100%.
and just gone and ran with it.
And gone and ran with it, and not quite as well. It was striking to me because I've heard a lot of nice singers and a lot of singers who kind of follow in her lineage.
Yeah.
And they all sound great. There is something extra special about Babs.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that she finds her way through that. Just, it's silky. She slides through notes so much, but it doesn't sound weird. It just sounds wonderful.
It sounds like it's very jazzy.
Yes. Whereas I think you're absolutely right. It is following in the footsteps of Merman. And Merman was very much pioneering this forward, speech-like kind of sound.
Yep.
And Babs took that and was like, okay, but what if it also didn't sound brassy? It just sounded
Yeah.
like silk. I could talk more about Barbra Streisand for an entire podcast.
Yep.
But this is not a podcast about, if Barbra Streisand was starring in Funny Girl on Broadway right now, we probably wouldn't be having a podcast.
So I propose
Yeah.
that we work through this chronologically.
Yes, please.
Great.
And I have a list of the events. And then
Right.
as we go through those events, perhaps y'all can interject and
Yep.
just sort of flesh out what I didn't find.
Yes, and
Yeah.
so you have everything up until September 6th. And I have everything from September 6th to the present day, which is currently Monday, September 19th.
Oh my gosh. We are like, this is current.
All right. So let me start. I think I can start us off.
Start
Great.
us off.
Turn of the 20th century, operetta is very popular, and people start to experiment with a new form called musical theater.
Yes.
Is that
Oh.
too early?
Oh, that's
is
really
that,
far back, Paul.
I think we can skip ahead.
we can
like
skip ahead a
little
few
bit.
years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would hope that the folks listening to this would at least
Can
have-
follow us through that.
Yeah.
For more information about musical theater and the Great Depression, please watch our video essay
that's right.
called Musical Theater and the Great Depression, available on
smart.
YouTube.
I love that. That's actually great.
Synergy.
Yeah.
Ooh, look at that.
But that's not why y'all are here.
So I found this amazing article on people.com.
Great.
And
People
it
who
is-
need people.com.
I'm sorry?
People who need people.
The stars are aligning, everyone.
Okay,
Okay. So people.com. And this article was written by Kelsey Gibson. This article is from September 7th, and it is called A Complete Timeline of the Funny Girl Casting Saga.
Yes.
I will talk about everything from August 2021
Yep.
until September 6th, 2022. So that is the window of time I will be starting with. Of course, we've got some context for before and some stuff after, as Daph mentioned, but we'll start there and then see how things unfold. It's August 2021. Beanie is announced as the next Fanny Bryce in Funny Girl.
This podcast is not about Beanie Feldstein's career pre-Funny Girl, but just for some context.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth Greer, open quotes, Beanie Feldstein, is Jonah Hill's sister. She kind of came about in the last couple of years or so. She kind of got her kind of breakout role in Lady Bird, directed by Greta Gerwig.
Very good movie. She's very good in it.
Yeah. She also appeared in What We Do in the Shadows on FX. And she was also in Booksmart, directed by Olivia Wilde.
Love that
Booksmart.
movie.
It's so good.
I really loved it.
I really loved it too.
There's something really beautiful about Beanie being in what has been called the female Superbad, when her brother was in the male Superbad, or Superbad, if you will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or hit Hollywood film Superbad.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah, so she's incredible in Booksmart. Booksmart has an extended musical sequence. She's incredible in Lady Bird.
Also with a musical sequence.
Oh yeah.
She doesn't do it.
That's right, but that
I don't
also
think.
it also is a movie. Anyways, to bring it back, let's hear about what's Beanie Feldstein doing these days.
In August 2021, it is announced that Beanie Feldstein is going to be starring in the revival of Funny Girl. Okay, so there was the original from 64 to 67. Then we had a one-night only concert in 2002 with several Fannies.
Can we go down the list really quick of everyone who played Fanny Bryce in that concert?
It's amazing.
We've got Carolee Carmello,
Kristen
my
Chenoweth.
actual crush. Kristen Chenoweth, Sutton Foster, Anna Gasteyer,
Love.
Whoopi Goldberg,
Yes.
Spencer Caden, I'm not sure who that is,
Hello, Spencer.
Jane Krakowski,
Amazing.
Judy Kuhn,
Oh, welcome back.
La Chance,
LaChance.
Ricky Lake, Andrea Martin,
I can't.
Edina, Julia Murney, Bebe Newirth, Alice Playton, Lilias White.
Oh, yes.
And is that the end of the list? That's the end of
the
list of people who play Fanny Bryce in that concert.
Those are the Fannies. Honorable mention to Manitoban Len Cariou. Thank you for coming.
Oh yeah, he's in it too. Look at that. So that's 2002.
Yeah.
If you were lucky to be in that audience for one night, I'm sure it was great.
Yeah, would love to hear from you.
Yep.
And then this will be the first official revival production. So this is very exciting. It is much anticipated because this has been bubbling under the surface since, I mean, I said 2010 earlier. That's when it hit for me.
Like about 20. I think that's right, actually. Thinking about that timeline, that's about right.
Yeah. So that was when the news broke. And then I want to say it was like the next day they announced a few other people who were going to be joining Beanie.
Great.
So those people being Jane Lynch, Ramin Karimloo, and Jared Grimes.
Terrific.
So far, so good?
So far, so good. I would say maybe for some of the more knowledgeable Broadway fans, this announcement maybe raises an eyebrow or two.
Well, and this is actually important. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask if either of you had remembered that happening and what your thoughts and feelings were at the time.
Whenever you hear about a piece of stunt casting, is like the first thing that goes through my mind is, but can they actually sing?
Yes.
Exactly.
And so the only thing that Beanie Feldstein had been in prior to being cast in this revival was as Minnie Fay in Hello Dolly.
Yes.
She was in the 2017-2018 cast for that.
Yep.
But is not known as a singer. And if you're not familiar with Funny Girl, it has one of, if not the hardest songs in musical theater.
Yes.
Don't Rain on My Parade.
Yep.
And just in general, even separating that, most of the songs there's a lot of singing. Fanny Bryce does
So
it
much
in
singing.
almost all of the singing in the show.
Yeah.
And they range from, like, you need a lot of technical prowess to get through them, like Don't Rain on My Parade, or People, for that matter, to pretty hard. Like, that's the low end is pretty hard. Lots of, you need to be able to navigate your upper register and have it be like a forward, intense sound rather than a floaty kind of light sound. So to tie this in, I remember hearing the news and thinking, wow, that's a big sing. I hope Beanie can really sing.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what my thoughts were. Because I find her very charming on screen. And so I thought that would be, from an acting perspective, I remember thinking, oh, that's actually a really fun idea to have her do it. But my fear was like, what is her comfort level with that kind of music? Because it's one thing to be like receiving that as an audience and to be like, oh, like I wish it sounded this way or that way. But like, what are her thoughts and feelings about having to sing all this material? And
having to do it between 6 and 8 times a week.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Because this is the other thing. This is not necessarily a movie or even a like live concert performance or live NBC special or whatever. This is a full-on run 6 times to 8 times a week. You're hitting it.
You are in this show until it closes or your contract lets you out of it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Which was a year. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Right.
her contract was a year from, I'm assuming, first preview. Much like we had our feelings, I also had secondary feelings, and so did the public. The public, aka Twitter, was wondering where Lea Michele was and if she was okay, because that was also my thought.
Now, this is not a podcast about Lea Michele's career. Lea Michele has been on Broadway from being a preteen, basically.
Yeah, like wasn't Ragtime in 98 her first show?
I forgot about Ragtime. I was thinking Les Mis. Les Mis was first.
Okay, there we go.
So before Ragtime, actually, she she's in the original OBC Les Mis that continues to run till 2003.
Amazing.
She does some young Cosette work, some young Eponine work. IBDB has her even going in as a Gavroche from time to time.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I actually love it.
Right?
Oh, wow.
But then she's in the original cast of Ragtime.
So that's her sort of her start on stage. And then there was a show and I never watched it. So someone help me.
Yep. It's a little piece. It's this bizarre piece. It's based on a German play.
Oh, yes.
It's based on an obscure German play, and it's about teenagers.
What could it be?
I don't know. It's people probably haven't heard of it.
Fall Getting Up.
Oh, that's got winter
Shake a leg.
naps.
Sleepy Autumn.
Summer
that?
narcolepsy.
Lea Michele stars in the original Broadway cast of Spring Awakening.
Yes.
And it's enormous. It's a huge. She stars as Wendla. I think we forget how important that original cast was.
Yeah.
And how important that original production was in launching Jonathan Groff and John Gallagher Jr.
John Gallagher Jr.
And Lea Michele, what's her next move after the OBC Spring Awakening?
I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, but we have to talk about
No.
it. It's amazing that we've gone this long on a Broadway-themed podcast, only talking about it once.
Important context for this episode. I am the only person here who was like in the appropriate demographic to both watch and enjoy Glee when it came out.
Yeah.
I was in my second year of high school, and all of a sudden, the pilot episode drops.
I remember when the pilot episode of Glee dropped because
Yeah.
I was just done my first year of university or whatever.
Because it was this really interesting kind of like mic drop / marketing ploy where they dropped the pilot and then didn't do anything else for several months. They were definitely trying to
Really?
they were trying to build buzz and hype for this show. So they only dropped the pilot and then months later actually dropped the rest of the season.
That's actually kind of cool. I don't...
Yeah.
Well, didn't even drop the
hate
rest of the
that.
season. The rest of the season aired like TV
Yes.
shows used to air.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but for months, you could watch this pilot and get excited about this show that featured young people who maybe you look back now and they maybe even look a bit old, but at the time it was like, hey, these actually kind of seem like high school students.
Right.
Yeah, it was really all about diversity and all these different people who could sing. And you look back now and the representation is not awesome because they tokenize the hell out of everybody.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was okay, here is a kid in a wheelchair. Here is a young black woman. Here is a young Asian woman.
Absolutely.
And what do they all love? They all love singing a cappella. And that's
Right.
kind of cool.
And it stars Lea Michele as this super type A diva in training who is very committed to her show choir. So much so that it's a little off-putting how intense she is.
So
Yeah.
I feel personally attacked
Well, this
by
is
that.
it. Right?
As a child who would force the other kids on the playground to do her choreography.
Absolutely.
I feel weirdly connected to this character you're talking about.
I felt similarly as someone who would have a word with other cast members in his High School Musical if they were missing rehearsal. Would
Yes,
personally
you
take them
would.
aside and be like, hey, you got to be more committed. Like, you got to get
Actually,
together, please.
love
Where
that
my
you
drama
did
teacher had to
that.
take me aside and be like, Paul, that's very sweet. You got to stop.
But it's not
That's
on
not
you.
your job. So Rachel Berry, which is her
Okay.
character in Glee, I'm right there with it.
Yeah.
When you reflect back on when it came out, it was like the Law and Orders
Yeah. It
and
was
the
the CSIs.
Thin Blue
Lots
Lines
of
and the
CSIs.
CSIs.
Yeah.
Like that is what people were consuming in that time slot.
Yeah.
And so to have it sort of shaken up and to be something different. Yeah.
And for all of Glee's faults, like, it did do, like, quite a bit to, like, actually start representing, like, people of color and gay teenagers at a time when
Right.
television for teenagers in, like, the mid-aughts was very white. You had your
Yeah.
One Tree Hills and your OCs.
Right. Also didn't
yeah.
engage with those.
But
All this to say.
all this to say that, so Lea Michele gets a starring role in Glee and goes on to perform not one, not two, but 6 separate songs from Funny Girl over the course of her tenure.
Yeah.
And also in universe, what her character was cast as Fanny Bryce in a revival of Funny Girl on Broadway. We close out part of season 1 with Lea Michele performing Don't Rain on My Parade for sectionals. And then she goes on to perform that song
2009.
at the 64th Annual Tony Awards.
There
Okay,
you go.
so
Yeah.
this is where I pick up because
absolutely.
as a non-Glee watcher, but an avid
Avid Tony watcher.
Tony watcher, I saw this performance and I go, this is her desperate attempt to
Yep.
audition for
Absolutely.
this fake production that doesn't exist.
Yeah, this as yet non-existent
Yeah.
revival.
And at the time, it's unclear, does she want to be specifically involved with Funny Girl? Does she just want to be like, I am the next Barbara Streisand?
Right.
Or
I'm
just,
claiming the title.
or just
Yeah.
I haven't done anything really since Spring Awakening. I'm available.
Maybe
Yes,
that's
I would
it
go. I would go
too.
back on stage.
In the previous point I made about the cast announcement, it was announced that Jane Lynch was going to be playing Mrs. Bryce.
Yep.
And Jane Lynch was on Glee, as we all know. So it's announced that along with Beanie, Jane Lynch is going to be playing Mrs. Bryce.
Fantastic.
And so I think, at least in my mind, that is part of why Twitter was confused.
Yeah.
Where is Lea Michele? Hashtag where is Lea Michele?
Yeah.
If
I don't
they're-
think there was a hashtag.
How on earth
No,
would they
actually
stunt
there
cast?
was.
You're kidding me.
I'm not kidding. So Beanie did an interview about this. When she was announced as the next Fanny Bryce, Lea Michele was trending on Twitter. Beanie's announcement was undercut by everyone going, but why isn't it Lea Michele?
Right.
That's so funny.
So so it says here in my notes, the public Twitter wonders where Lea Michele is and if she's okay. This is also my words, not from the article.
Of course.
I don't think a journalist would write it like this.
Is she okay?
Lea Michele shows support for Beanie.
Great.
Very gracious.
Being polite,
Probably
yep.
crying though as she's typing it.
Yep,
That's my
absolutely.
visual anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine her being like, you know, like J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man, where he's like pulling out his hair, get me pictures of Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah,
She's like
yeah.
yelling at her assistants,
Yeah.
get me, why am I not Fanny Bryce?
Right. So in October of 2021, the internet is graced with the first beautiful photos of Beanie Feldstein in her Fanny Bryce costume.
She looks
Terrific.
freaking gorgeous.
She looks radiant,
Perfect.
happy, and I'm like, this is the Fanny Bryce that I want to see.
And also, like, it's worth noting, as we've said before in the podcast, having a fat Fanny Bryce
Ugh,
is
iconic.
beautiful. And it's just really nice to see her looking
Absolutely.
beautiful and stunning and having the show not costume that away in any way.
Yeah.
It's really lovely.
And to like not be about that too.
Exactly.
Right? Like there's this beauty in the fact that she just gets to be Fanny Bryce.
Exactly. And that's beautiful.
I would even, to elaborate on that a little bit, I think that as far as just casting Fanny Bryce goes, if it was just where we want someone to play the person Fanny Bryce, Beanie Feldstein's a great choice.
I agree.
Is an awesome choice. The logic there is irrefutable. It's just the actual Funny Girl, the musical, the way it's written. That's
Yes.
that's posing the challenges. So that brings us to first shots come out.
Yes.
Beanie Feldstein looks great. Everyone goes, oh,
And everyone
okay.
goes, how is Lea Michele feeling about
Yeah.
this? Literally, Twitter is
Yeah.
like, is she okay?
Yeah.
And then Lea Michele is like, I'm fine. Beanie's gonna be great.
Yeah. Everyone, please chill out. please stop asking me if I'm okay. I'd rather not think about it.
Yeah,
Everyone knows this is a role I want.
Yes.
So can we just please move on and I'll do my thing?
I think that's the biggest
Yeah.
thing. I'd rather not think about it because it's like, why are you bringing me into this conversation when all I've done is perform every number from this show for my whole life and tell everybody that'll listen that I want to play this part?
I've just been campaigning for this role for 11 years.
And now I'm not in it, and that sucks, but like, stop asking me about it. I'm okay. You know? It's worse when you bring it up.
So at this point, we jump to March 26th, 2022, which is when the previews began.
Yep.
So they did a month of previews.
Which is pretty typical of a Broadway production.
Very typical. And also is not a number where I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of previews. I wonder what was wrong. No, that's very normal.
Yep.
And then on April 24th, 2022, which I believe is just in time for Tony Awards selection qualification, they open. So at this point in time, as of today, they've done over 160 performances. Probably closer to 170 at
the
now.
time of recording.
Yeah, I would guess.
I'd say so. And so they open, let's let the critics in. Open up the doors.
The show opens to mixed reviews.
To say the least.
And surprising no one, if we're being honest, right? Because I think there was some talk about how that would likely be the case.
You can't even consider that a shot. That's like friggin', well, it's like casting Russell Crowe as Javert. You know what I mean? Like, Russell Crowe's an excellent actor.
Like, he looks like Javert,
Singing
but
is a thing. Singing is a hard thing. Can we all just accept this? It's not something you're born with or you don't. It's something that you
work
practice
at.
for your life.
Maybe what we should do is have Beanie take all the book scenes and then Leah takes all the songs.
Or a Singing in the Rain style, where
Yes.
it's like full microphone.
Or do what they did
lip-sync.
with the concert where they have, it seems like they had one Fanny Bryce do every scene or song. It's such a challenging thing because of Babs and what she did and what she became. It is impossible for Funny Girl to exist without inviting comparison to her now.
That to me is the obvious comparison, right? Where we go, oh, well, she doesn't sound like Barbara. She doesn't sound like Lea Michele even.
Yep, sure.
She doesn't even sound like her own standby, Julie Benko. Like, but the point I mean is like when she is performing next to Ramin Karimloo.
Literally one of the best singers on the planet.
Like, you kind of go, Babs is not even on the table at this point. We just need to focus on exactly what's happening around her, and it's Ramin Karimloo.
Exactly. So even if you can get there, even if you can go in and say, I wonder what Funny Girl's like as a piece on its own. Barbra Streisand, that's gone by now. Ramin Karimloo is right there, one of the best singers on the planet.
Exactly.
And there is this excellent singer who has kind of set herself up to be next in line for this, who also was not chosen.
Yeah. Okay, now that I've mentioned Julie Benko, Paul, maybe we should just quickly talk about who that is and how maybe she fits into the story.
Well, because the run progresses. I think mixed reviews is even generous based on what I saw.
Ooh,
the best reviews are Beanie's trying her best. And it goes downhill from there.
That is so, it's like so
it's very
condescending.
It's
like,
it's incredibly condescending.
And I'm 100% pro Beanie in this podcast.
I am too.
So I'm 300%, but this is a bad situation to be.
Yeah. All this to say, Julie Benko is a standby. On this production. And a standby means standbys are people who have a very specific number of shows that they do every week.
That's my understanding as well.
So
you do one
let's
or two
say
every
there's
week.
8 shows a week. They do 2.
And they also remain at the theater at all times when a production is on, so that if at any point the lead is unable to finish the show or to start the show, they go in. Big roles like Fanny Bryce will have a standby in because it's such a big track that the whole show hinges on.
Right.
So theaters will spend the money to keep someone on standby for it.
Right.
So in this case, Julie is Beanie's standby, but she starts to go on more and more.
More and more.
She starts to take whole weeks. And she's good. Surprising no one. Like because she's a standby, she's fully equipped, whatever education and training she has to nail this role.
Absolutely.
And so that kind of plays in contrast to Beanie, who is not necessarily equipped for that.
Right. Beanie's calling out more.
Yeah.
She gets COVID in June 2022. Okay, so that's what? Let's say 6-7 weeks after the opening.
And even for the most experienced performer, even though, assuming you've got all your shots, COVID isn't necessarily kicking the shit out of you. it has a hell of an effect on your voice.
Does it ever? And
Like-
I think a lot of folks are still navigating what it did to their instrument
100
in a
I've
big way.
met many singers who
Yeah.
are doing exactly that. Yep.
Yeah.
And also for someone like Beanie, who is not a trained vocalist,
Exactly.
Yeah.
that's probably taking an additional toll because she probably doesn't have the tools necessarily to both
Yes.
maintain and then try to repair that instrument.
Yeah.
So putting on Julie Benko-Lea, great. That's what standbys are for.
So because she's doing it more, Twitter notices, TikTok notices, and everyone's losing it. They're like, Julie Benko is it. She is great. She's amazing.
Yep, sounds fantastic.
And I agree.
She's possibly the only one in this story, maybe her and Jane Lynch, who come out like with this helping their career.
Yes. So during this whole Julie Benko thing,
Yeah.
I can only imagine how tough that would feel.
I would love for Beanie Feldstein to carry a show that doesn't involve quite as much singing, because she is a nice singer.
Yeah.
But just doesn't involve quite as much.
All of this is happening. This is June 2022, Beanie gets COVID. June 15th, so that's 10 days after Beanie has announced that she had COVID, she announces she's leaving Funny Girl on September 25th. Jane Lynch also announces that she too will be leaving on September 25th.
That's weird. Why is Jane Lynch leaving?
So this is where my brain goes, what were those conversations like with the producers?
Yep. Oh, it's
What-
brutal. It's potentially an ugly side of show business.
So Beanie was supposed to be in the show, and probably Jane Lynch as well, for a year.
Yep.
So that means, if we're all doing the math, listeners, Playbills, you would know that means they were supposed to be in until at least spring 2023.
Absolutely. And producers have said these two, we say stunt casting. I don't agree with that, because they're not. It's not like Jane Lynch is very qualified to be in this.
Yeah.
Beanie is very qualified to be in a Broadway musical, if not this one. But they were betting on these stars carrying them through a year.
Yep.
They're confident enough to be like, this is going to run a year, and you're on for it.
Yeah.
This is probably going to run further than a year, and we'll renegotiate when we hit it.
Yes. So when they both announce that they're leaving, Funny Girl puts out a thing that's like, casting announcements coming in like a couple days.
The other thing is, at this point, Julie Benko has become pretty beloved because she's also
That's
very
right.
active on social media.
Yes.
She's where no one else really has at this point, is being just the model of a good cast member. Oh, get excited for Funny Girl. Behind the scenes look here and there.
Yep.
Here's our wonderful dance captain. Here's our whatever the case may
like
be.
essentially trying to keep it alive, let's
Absolutely.
be honest.
Yeah.
Because ticket sales were not going super great at that point either.
Because bad reviews, and they didn't get the Tony nods.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's the thing that I know happened, because we know what goes on.
Yep.
I know that they, as soon as they didn't receive many Tony noms, the producers, probably had a meeting and said, what are we going to do to save this show?
Yep.
Oh, and this
And
was
then-
probably the start of some really anxiety-inducing emails with
Oh
subject
my
lines
God.
like "the path forward," the
Oh my
future of
God.
Funny Girl on Broadway.
I think I just
Where
felt
do we
my
go
asshole
from
be
here?
puckered.
where do we go from here? And I actually just threw up.
They did receive a
Yes.
Tony nomination
Yeah.
for Best Performance by an Actor in a Featured Role
Yes.
for Jared Grimes.
Exactly.
That is
Rightfully
their,
so.
That is their one and only Tony nom,
Which
though.
actually surprised me, because the costumes are quite beautiful.
They are really nice
The
costumes.
lighting looked nice.
But I think, like, for
yeah.
a star vehicle like this show is, to get anything less than a nominee
Yes.
for whoever is playing Fanny is a really big mark against the show.
Well, it tells you everything you need to know about how
Yeah.
things are feeling over there. So what happens when a person has decided to leave a show is that there's been a conversation behind the scenes where they've said, hey, maybe we're going to go in
Yeah.
another direction.
Absolutely.
yeah.
And then that person will either agree or disagree, but we will never know. Like, we will literally
Totally.
never know.
Because
unless,
especially
yeah.
for something like that, the PR machine works so, and it should.
Yep.
For celebrities work so hard to
Yeah.
mask any true feelings.
Absolutely.
So that, which is, to be honest, I think is even kind, is Beanie can have her
Yeah.
reaction the way she needs to have her reaction with her loved ones, and can publicly exit the show with dignity.
Yes.
So that's great.
So that is what happens. And then they say casting announcement coming soon. And I think they actually even said like 3 days or something. Like, no, it was literally the next day. Sorry.
So they've already got this in place.
So it's already in place. And that's the thing that makes me the most sick to my stomach is thinking about Beanie having that happen to her.
Mm-hmm. So I bring that up as well because that becomes important to Jane Lynch leaving.
They both announced that they're leaving. The announcements come on July 15th that Beanie and Jane Lynch are both leaving on September 25th. On July 10th, Beanie announces she's actually leaving earlier on July 31st. So that is 2 months almost earlier.
But what gets announced?
So the next day, July 11th, Funny Girl Broadway team confirms that yes, because I'm sure Twitter was like, this is it.
Our time has come.
Confirms that yes, Lea Michele will be stepping into the role of Fanny starting September 6th. And that Julie Benko, standby extraordinaire, is going to step in until then. So in the interim. So between, I guess that would be like August 1st until,
So first of all, very exciting for Julie. She actually gets to own the role for a bit. That rules. But Jill, Lea Michele and Jane Lynch are old friends from being on Glee together.
Is that what you'd call them? Old friends?
I don't know.
Why would I not call them old friends?
Okay, folks, so this is where we start getting into a territory of Twitter drama mixed with real life events.
Right.
In a way that I'm not super sure that we can come down one side or the other about what really happened. So I'm just putting that out there.
I agree completely.
But rumors have been flying for a while that Lea Michele on the set of Glee and in the rest of her career has been a bit of a terror.
Yeah.
Both just in a interpersonal context and also in the context of not treating her co-stars of color in a respectful way.
Absolutely.
So if we had to speculate, probably Jane Lynch is going, I don't know if I want to be in a cast with that person that may or may not have done some things to me personally.
Right.
It's also worth noting, in the interest of fair play, that the internet has not been terribly kind to Lea Michele.
Yep.
And there have also been rumors floating around, for example, that she can't read, that she's illiterate.
That is really what I wanted to bring up.
Which is a wild thing to say about someone.
Yeah, so
a professional, like an active professional.
Yeah.
You can clearly read. Come on, guys. She can.
I'm not clear.
And also, if she can't, whatever, you know?
Yeah, well, exactly. She's clearly doing fine. Let's call... I bring it up to mention how shitty people are being.
Yeah.
So in the context of Lea, and I don't come down one way or another on Lea Michele. I've never met her, so I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a couple of weeks ago, as of the time of this recording, so starting in early September 2022.
Right before she was set to debut.
Rumors start flying that Lea Michele cannot read. I'm going to put this out there, regardless of whether or not Lea Michele can or can't read. Making fun of someone for being dyslexic is not cool.
Illiterate.
Dyslexic, illiterate, any of that. Yeah, I agree.
Maybe don't do it. But that said, I do find this
it's absurd. It's wild.
Rumor getting made up out of whole cloth is very funny, but making fun of someone for not being able to read is not
Exactly.
funny.
And like I said, we can use it as an example that perhaps Twitter, which is usually a very pleasant and fair place to hang out, is not being very kind to Lea Michele.
They do call it the courtroom of the internet. So there's obviously... Okay, and here's the thing I'll say about these rumors. A rumor not being able to read, okay, fine. But a rumor where someone is repeatedly accused or described to be a bully, to me, I'm like... there is probably truth in there.
Yeah, especially when you have multiple people saying it.
And it's behavioral, like you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that can't be ignored as we continue this conversation.
Yeah.
You also can't ignore the arc of her career. The reason I brought up Jonathan Groff and John Gallagher Jr. of her Spring Awakening colleagues who have had really nice careers is that Lea Michele kind of hasn't.
True.
Surely those same opportunities were or would have been presented to Lea Michele. Once again, this is conjecture, but
of course.
I'm not saying she is a monster, but I'm saying that there certainly seem to be some things limiting her career.
Yeah, it gives me pause.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when it was announced that Beanie was going to be leaving early, Funny Girl announces, yes, Lea Michele is stepping into the role literally the next day on July 11th.
Yeah.
Then Jane Lynch says, actually, I'm going to leave on September 4th. I'm going to leave.
It's impossible to not at least think about it. Draw the parallels that Jane Lynch is like, Lea Michele is a nightmare to work with. I'm not interested in that.
Right. So that is where my brain went immediately.
It's where everyone's brain went.
Because it felt a little bit like it was confirming some of those like things that were swirling around her. Clearly, Jane Lynch's team had a finger on the pulse because they then released this, essentially a statement being like, Lea Michele's going to be great in this role. I just want her to have her opening performance with the new Mrs. Bryce, which actually I don't think is the worst decision.
Yeah.
But also it's like, it doesn't look great to me.
You guys worked together for a long time.
Yeah.
You're connected or you're not.
Bingo.
And you're clearly not.
Mm-hmm. On July 13th, so this is 2 days after Lea Michele is announced, ticket prices completely skyrocket. Like it was something like they had been in the like $70 range, which is, you know, usually what I like to pay for a show.
That's an affordable Broadway show.
Yeah.
For those of us who visit once every couple of years or so.
Yeah. For the month of September, they've like gone, I don't know what they're at now, but they immediately shot up into the 500s.
And producers are trying to make their money back. I'm sure they've lost money on the Beanie production at this point because of the bad reviews.
I get it.
Yeah.
They also, so on the day that ticket prices really saw a bump, Beanie's reps released a statement being like, no, the Funny Girl team wasn't blindsided by Beanie's decision to leave, which to me is PR for Beanie was asked to leave.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so like the producers and Beanie have come to a decision together.
Right.
It's that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Listen,
yes.
I said the same thing when my ex dumped me. Listen, it was not mutual. It was not mutual, honey.
And once again, you know there's some email that got sent as a changes to the company in upcoming weeks.
Oh my
There was
God.
just, everyone just had a knot in their stomach for the rest of the day after this frickin' email.
Everything about that just made my entire
I know,
body.
right?
Yeah. It's too much.
Coffee on Monday? Question mark.
So on July 15th, so this is now, 4 or 5 days after the initial announcement,
Yeah.
Beanie confirms she has tonsillitis.
That sucks. I'm sorry.
It sucks so bad, and it's also not surprising. As we were discussing, the agility and stamina required for this show, I mean, it would take down even a seasoned person. Like, it's a lot.
It took down, true story, apparently Babs would cut songs
Just
per
feeling,
night.
like,
Would be
depending
like,
on...
I don't know exactly, but like, hey, sorry, we're not doing people tonight. I don't have people.
Whoa.
This is
Things are so different
this
now,
is
hey?
rumor on rumor.
Of course.
I don't have anything close to a source other than a podcast I listen to.
Answer us. We need answers.
But like, and that's no joke. This thing is no joke.
Yeah. So July 26th, that's 11 days after the tonsillitis thing. June 15th was when Beanie announced she was, first announced she was leaving Funny Girl.
Absolutely.
Okay, June 15th.
Yep.
We are now 6 weeks later.
Yep.
5 weeks later.
Yep.
It's quick.
Yep.
July 26th, Lea Michele posts the picture I hate most on social media, which is a picture of the script and saying, here we go.
First day of school. Here we go.
Yeah.
Can't wait to dive into this one.
I know.
makes
That's my
total
own
sense.
personal thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Again,
Yeah.
I love you both, so
Yeah.
I don't hold it against either of you.
So excited to start with this amazing team.
Yeah.
This cast is fierce.
Yeah. Oh
my God, this
First sing through today. This cast is fierce.
This
See, but I
amazing
actually-
group of people.
But it's all true. That's the
It
thing.
is. And those are all reasonable things to say about
Listen,
your coworkers.
I say this with love to everyone I know that I follow
Social
on
media is
social
just
media.
a nightmare, and it's the worst.
Oh, not even that. I'm mostly just like, it's cliche because everyone does it because
Yeah.
I follow a lot of really positive, lovely people who are just excited about the work they're
Exactly.
doing.
It's especially funny to have Lea Michele post that within the context of all of this.
Of all of this, it's
Yeah.
like
Yes.
the house is burning
Yeah.
and you're standing there as the first day of school picture in front of it. And then July 31st is Beanie's final performance. So that's 5 days after the Lea Michele picture.
It's wild that they put in Julie for a few weeks rather than have Beanie fulfill the rest
Yes.
of her
Yeah.
shortened run.
Oh, exactly. And there is a reliability with Julie Benko, is my
At least
understanding.
the show, because once the show closes, it's impossible to get it back open. You need to keep the show open.
How hilarious would it be if Funny Girl couldn't make it for those next 3 or 4 weeks? And Lea
Right?
Michele was never able to actually perform.
Well, that would have been incredible. That would have been an incredible ending to this story, to this podcast, to all the podcasts.
Just a kind of fun, monkey's paw kind of wish fulfillment.
You can star in Funny Girl on Broadway.
But only once.
But it will never open.
obviously she spent the next 5 weeks rehearsing.
Yeah.
September 1st. So we have not yet seen Lea Michele's Fanny Bryce, but it's coming up.
We haven't seen her Fanny.
we have yet to see her Fanny.
That was very dirty for the UK listeners.
I was
and
gonna
was very
say,
tame for the American listeners.
UK listeners are going to be having a hard time with this episode.
They called her what, Bryce?
God,
all right, sorry, Jill.
so
Please
good.
continue.
No, it was perfect.
Good bit, everyone.
It was the
Good
laugh
bit.
I needed.
Good bit.
So September 1st, we're a week away from the first Fanny of Lea Michele.
Terrific.
And Michael Mayer, who was the director of Spring Awakening and is also the director of Funny Girl, which for me, alarm bells go off. He confirms, in fact, that Lea Michele was originally in consideration for the show. And I'm like, why would you say that? Like, we actually
What's the
already
point,
know that.
right?
Like, why would you kick Beanie while she's
Well,
down?
this is
and that's the
exactly
other
it.
thing.
You let her get out with some dignity, for God's sake.
And I kind of feel like that maybe wasn't something we needed confirmation on.
Beanie's been publicly humiliated at
Yeah.
this point, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Then September 2nd,
Yep.
Lea Michele is like, Twitter, stop it. There is no feud. We've got no feud.
No.
Me and Beanie, which is probably true. Like, they
And-
probably don't even talk at all.
Also, Twitter, stop it is the exact right thing to say right now because Twitter needs to calm the fuck down. You're not doing any good.
Down. September 6th, 2022.
Yep.
Lea Michele finally gets to play Fanny Bryce on Broadway.
Is this where our timeline catches up with your
Like,
timeline ends?
So my timeline ends here. The only thing I've heard is that I think she's sick.
And this is where my timeline picks up.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Okay.
From the southeast side, west side of the living room.
Thank you, Jill and Paul. We now join me live on the scene at the living room.
You're not live on the scene. You're here with us in Winnipeg.
Oh, right. Okay. So on September 11th, hashtag never forget,
Sunday, September 11th.
it is announced that Lea
7.
Michele is out of the show because she has COVID.
Oh, wow. That's like 5 days after.
That is correct. Lea Michele has been on the show
opening.
for 5 days and is out with
That's
COVID.
so funny.
no.
What a disaster.
And also, this was incredible, actually. So Julie Benko posts to Instagram this chart of the in and out chart of like kind of track who's in for who over the course of this show.
Presumably, like, is it the actual, like, production chart? Like
Yes.
the one that you... Great.
Yes.
So the actual paperwork
Whoa.
that you use
Yes.
to keep track of
Like-
who's in and who's out.
On the night in question,
Yeah.
This is on September 10th.
Yeah.
Deborah Cardona was supposed to be in as Mrs. Meeker, but instead she also came down with COVID.
Oh,
so
sure.
it's ripping through the cast.
Oh, that
And actually,
sucks.
that makes sense
Yeah.
because if they were rehearsing together really closely as people who were like about to go on in those roles,
It never
Yeah.
really would have been. Yeah.
that makes sense. Okay.
yeah.
Barbara Terrell was hired on Friday,
Yes.
drove down on
Hired.
Saturday morning, had 30 minutes of rehearsal, and then was in the show, script in hand, for the matinee. Presumably nailed it, and I think that that's just really cool because it just, again,
That's an exceptional circumstance.
I love
Yeah.
that.
To have someone not in the show come in, learn the part, then hit it.
And
It's
someone who's only
wild.
seen it once.
Like, that's
Yeah.
wild.
Obviously, they don't want to cancel the show because that's a bunch of money.
Tons of
that's
money.
tickets
Yeah.
that need to be reassigned to a different day. But I'm like, at what cost? Like, that's all I think about. There's all these people on the internet celebrating the fact that this person stepped in, and I'm like, what was the choice? Like, you either cancel the show and give them another day of work. Like,
To Canada's credit, at least at the regional level, I've seen this happen a couple times now post-COVID with shows. And I've seen a couple different theaters cancel a show or two to get an understudy ready,
right.
which is nice, which is the right thing to do.
I wonder about it a lot because there is this celebration of like, look at what this person did in 30 minutes and not a larger conversation of like, why did this person have to do this in 30
Exactly.
minutes?
It's a little bit like those posts you see about like those like inspirational posts saying like little kid opens lemonade stand to pay for his dad's health care, and it's like maybe we shouldn't be putting people in a position where that's a thing they have to do.
Exactly.
While we're striving to draw conclusions from this whole disaster, it's a complicated thing when an actor is up in a role that they do not have the core skills to accomplish.
Yeah.
Some of that can be laid at the feet of the performer, of knowing yourself and knowing what you can do and can't do. but a big part of that also has to be laid at the hands of the producers.
Yes. I personally lay a lot of fault with the producers for putting Beanie Feldstein in a position where she was not set up to succeed.
Yeah.
And I also, in general, don't really like giving Veruca Salt the chocolate factory.
A little bit. So here's the problem.
Okay, tell me the problem.
Funny Girl's not an incredible show. It was only well known because of Barbara Streisand and her incredible performance.
Yeah.
So if the performance isn't going to be that groundbreaking again, why are we doing it?
Well, that's the big question.
You know what I mean?
Like why are we doing Funny Girl again at all? Like despite all of what has happened. Yeah, like what is the reason for reintroducing us to Funny Girl at this moment in time?
It seems self-centered. If we were going to look at another Jewel Stein score, why aren't we looking at Gypsy or something, which has all the same beats, but actually has something really cool to say about the relationship, about show business, about the relationship between a mother and a daughter.
Yeah.
For me, it harkens back to kind of the big issue with reboots. It's like, are you saying anything new or original with this iteration of this story?
That's right.
Or do you just think, people know this story, they will pay money to go see the story? End of reasoning. Yeah.
I would argue there's a third category, just for the sake of completeness. The third category being, we're not going to say anything new, but the point still stands.
Yes.
The old point is still correct.
Which I like a lot. That's why I like some revivals, because it's like what we always talk about, which is what's the context.
Exactly.
And does it change the way we feel about the show?
Yeah.
And I think what I'm understanding is we all are kind of in agreement where it's like, I don't feel any different or better about needing this version. So
I don't like that Funny Girl all revolves around Fanny Bryce needing a man, needing a romantic partner. It kind of almost feels like it minimizes her incredible career as an entertainer.
You know what? They did Fanny Bryce dirty the way that the public did Beanie Feldstein dirty. So look at us.
So
full circle.
Just a lot of dirty fannies.
I know we have at least one listener in the UK, and he's going to be scandalized. It's
Hi, Nelson.
Dear friend of the podcast, Nelson
Happy
Betancourt.
birthday, Nelson.
Happy birthday, Nelson.
We're recording
recording
this on
Nelson's
Betancourt's birthday.
Happy
Please
birthday.
leave that in, Nelson. We put in a bunch of fannies just for you.
We love you.
So let's do final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
Final thought. We already kind of shared our final thoughts on Funny Girl and the process of reviving shows.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on Beanie Feldstein-Julie Michele, Barbara Streisand, Jane Lynch, I guess.
Beanie Feldstein, I hope you're having a good day, and I hope that your next role is one that is better suited to your incredible skill set.
She's going to land on her feet. She's going to make so many cool movies.
Yep, I hope.
And might even have a really cool stage career as well.
Is Beanie not playing Mary in that 20-year-long Merrily We Roll Along?
And it's a Richard Linklater film?
That makes sense.
That's the boy guy, right?
Yes.
The boy guy. for our listeners
the
who
boy
don't
man.
know what I'm talking about. The movie, The Boy, right? That was the name of it? The Boy?
Boyhood.
Thank
Yes.
you. Who makes those like 10-year, decade-long movies.
Yeah. So for context, this particular Merrily We Roll Along adaptation is told over the course of 20 years in real time.
Yeah.
It is being filmed over the course of 20 years in reverse chronological order.
So it's Richard Linklater doing a Boyhood.
Yes.
For Merrily.
For Merrily.
Yeah.
Which...
It's kind of cool.
But it was supposed to be me, Paul. Maybe the only thing I'll say is that I think the thing I struggle with the most about this is the bullying allegations and stories. I shouldn't say allegations because it seems like they're quite supported. So the conversations surrounding the bullying really give me pause. When there is that much conversation about it, and then to give the person the thing that they want, it just feels like you had said, Daphne, like the Veruca thing of like...
In general, I just think that if it's well documented that a person is unpleasant to work with, maybe we stop giving them opportunities to be a bad person in a rehearsal hall. Like, I like creating safe and healthy rehearsal spaces. I think that should trump the quote-unquote star quality of whoever it is that is in that room.
Yeah, because, like, look at Julie Benko, existing in a beautiful, peaceful, encouraging place.
And who is now set to star in Harmony, the musical, which is a new musical on Broadway.
My final thoughts.
Yes, tell us.
I'm pretty sure Beanie Feldstein is going to be okay.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Julie Benko is going to have a really cool career. And
Rightfully so.
Out of the 3 Fanny Bryces, is the one who's actually going to emerge with the career they all wanted.
Yeah.
And I think Jane Lynch seems nice.
She'll be fine.
I think Jane Lynch, we can say for sure, has emerged from this 100% unscathed. Thank you for joining us, dear Playbills.
What a wild ride.
What a good bonus episode. I hope you stuck with us. I hope producer Daff can turn this into something listenable.
I'm so sorry.
I always can.
Monkeys are uncaged. Right?
Good.
Paul is
callback.
beaming with pride right now.
Get me a banana.
Oh, jeez.
Thank you for joining us, dear Playbills. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, reach out if you want to chat.
Also, as you may or may not have seen on social media, I highly recommend following at Village Conservatory, who is our producing company. They're the shadowy face behind the curtain that controls our every move. We're producing 2 new podcasts, a mentorship podcast called It Takes Two, which will be featuring Jillian Willems in one of our episodes, and another podcast called Tales of the Great Transfiguration, written by Ben Townsley. Those are going to be coming very, very soon, and you should definitely keep your eyes peeled on social media for more details.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Till next time.
Hey, hey, where are the monkeys? People say monkeying around. Hi, everyone. This is producer Daphne speaking. Thank you all so much for listening to Monkeys and Playbills, the show where we take a look at Broadway musicals that had 100 performances or fewer before closing. To learn more about the show, you can follow us on Instagram at Monkeys and Playbills Pod, on Twitter at Monkey Playbills, or email us at monkeysandplaybillspod@gmail.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/monkeysandplaybills. Super exciting! We now have merch available. Visit spring.com and search Monkeys and Playbills to find mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, and more designs coming soon. Monkeys and Playbills is proud to be a Village Conservatory for Music Theater podcast. Original music for the show is provided by Paul DeGurse, and the show is produced and edited by Daphne Finlayson. We wanted to give a special thank you to the Canada Council for the Arts for supporting this season of Monkeys and Playbills, as well as 2 other podcasts now joining the Village Conservatory family. Stay tuned for more details on both of these new shows coming soon.